Now that you've done one sphere, let's see how the sphere reacts when the light changes the direction it's coming from. So you're going to do 3 different spheres. This time the light on the left is coming from the left, in the middle is coming from directly above, on the right it's coming from the right. So let's start by drawing in our cast shadows. If my light source is coming this direction, the cast shadow is going to be towards the right. Just drawing an ellipse, then I'll take an eraser and erase out what's above the horizon line and on top of the circle. In the middle, the cast shadow is just directly below. Now, depending on how close the light source is to that cast shadow could grow or shrink. We'll just make it about the width of the circle. And erase. And every time you erase, be sure to take your finger and really wipe clean the area where you have erased to get rid of any leftover film. On this one, our ellipse is to the left. Okay, core shadow is going to be opposite of where the light source is coming from and a little bit above the edge of the bottom. The reason the darkest shadow is not right at the bottom is you usually get some reflected light just bouncing off the surface of where the sphere is sitting. So now I'm going to rotate my paper. I'll do that a lot when I do a sphere. I'll lightly draw in where I want the highlight to be, just so I remember not to shade in that area. You've heard me say it a bunch of times before, and I'll say it again. It's always better to shade lightly and go back in after to darken things if you need to darken things. As I'm shading this, I'm doing circular strokes. Up and around that highlight. Okay, I've got this jelly bean shape, core shadow. I don't want to be able to see that shape. If I see that shape on your shading, you're going to get docked. Blend that jelly bean out in all directions. So I'm doing these circular motions. What would happen if I was just going straight across like this? Try to imagine a bunch of lines going straight across. If you were able to see any of those lines, it would flatten the image out. It would kind of work against itself because you're doing these darks and lights, but then the lines also describe the surface. If you have any lines in there, it would make it look flat while your shading would be trying to make it look spherical. So you don't want your lines to compete with your shading. That's why it's best to blend the best you can without smearing and use circular motions because they just fit the surface of a sphere a little better. I'm going to do my cast shadow in here. So this is not a perfect sphere, and I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. And if you're doing this for your first time or even your 50th time, don't get frustrated. You're still learning. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. Okay, I'm going to do my jelly bean right. It's kind of a smiley because of where it's located. Right directly down. Fill that in. I'll make a little spot for my highlight and start shading. When I shade, I do lots of overlapping. I try not to push down too hard. And I do this initial shading step knowing that it's not going to look that good, but I'm going to go back in and fix it up. Okay, kind of dark overall, but it's all right. To erase out those little circles that I drew for the highlights. Cast shadow. So the cast shadow is actually darker than underneath the sphere, just because of that reflected light that's bouncing up off the surface. Okay, on this one, core shadows a little to the left. Highlight that right there. Ooh, that was pretty dark. Whoops. There's something kind of meditative about doing this. It's one of the things I like about drawing. There's a lot going on in the world today, but you can just kick back, shade a sphere, and everything's all right. All right, when you have completed your drawing, take a picture and submit it on Canvas.